Okay, I submitted a algae activist article to a leftist journal that used to be in print form and I'd completely forgotten about it. It's called Z Magazine. Um and I find it hilarious that the the left the left has become this great boogeyman, the extreme left, but what they really mean is identity politics. But in fact, that's been used as a conquer and divide tactic by the billionaires, the corporate elite, or whatever. And when you have this extreme wealth, that's Eisenhower at a 91% tax rate on the rich. And so now, if you try to get a 37% tax rate, then you're an extreme leftist or something. I don't understand it, but the left doesn't really exist anymore because less than 10% of the working class is unionized, and that's what the left traditionally was unions. And so when somebody complains about the extreme, and that's what the left traditionally was unions. And so when somebody complains about the extreme left, what they really mean is this fake um, identity politics. And of course, the ecological crisis is the real problem as science defines it in terms of abrupt global warming. But because the corporate state media completely ignores, like mentions abrupt global warming, like once, maybe like every couple months in like 10 seconds passing without any in-depth discussion, then the so-called left ignores the ecological crisis pretty much as anybody else. And now we have the attack on climate science. Climate science has been defunded. The NASA Science Goddard Climate Institute just got shut down at Columbia University, and the NOAA, whatever it stands for, the Atmospheric National. Anyway, they are being having their budget cut, and so now the Florida weather guy, the biggest meteorologist in Florida, is saying, well, he's not going to be able to track the hurricanes because they lack the weather balloon data now. Not enough weather balloons are being released, and I pretty much predicted this in my 2012 book because I talked about how science is going to be challenged directly because people can't handle the evidence, the empirical evidence that is showing this global warming crisis. And so somebody I was listening to the Sam Tripoli conspiracy tinfoil hat podcast, and the guest on there was had created these web of corrupted internet people, and it was all based on if they got this wellness company sponsorship as advertising. And so then he basically, like, the Sam Tripoli was like, well, so if anybody gets any kind of advertising, pretty much, then they're corrupted, you know. And the conspiracy guy was like, well, I took advertising from this above phone sponsorship, and Sam's like, yeah, they're good, but it's $1,000 for the product, so not many people can buy it. And um yeah, but the point is like, well, if you really study science, then yeah, you are going to be corrupted by advertising because it's the evidence is challenging the very existence of human civilization, the ability to farm, and farming's the foundation of the economy, and the ability to drive cars and use oil and everything. Like our whole industrial civilization has been challenged by abrupt global warming, and when you factor in the aerosol masking effect, then you can't just switch to renewable energy, because renewable energy doesn't um, it doesn't negate that. It actually makes the aerosol masking effect worse. So it just heats up the climate faster. So there's these factors that people don't want to listen to, because they don't want to focus their minds on doing the research, because they're too fixated on trying to pay the bills. As Sam Tripoli says, they're just trying to pay the bills, and get that advertising money. And the way the capitalist structure is set up is that advertising is 100% tax deduction. So that's why people sell ads, or because the company that pays for the ad can then get the tax deduction. And so then you get this feedback system where the more tax deductions you have, the more advertising you have, and the less money you have for real economic production. And you find the same thing with psychology. Psychology is a tax deduction for corporations, just like accountants and lawyers, attorneys are tax deductions. So you have this vast corporate welfare subsidy system of tax deductions. And meanwhile, like the working class, they pay this increased tax for like Social Security, that's then getting stolen for military debt spending. And then people don't realize that 80% of debt spending is actually for military spending. So the military budget is actually 50% of the discretionary tax budget, when you factor in the debt spending and the spending on healthcare for their veterans. And so it's the whole political economic system and media information system is all very easy to misunderstand, because don't want to listen, because they're focused so much on trying to be normal with the American dream. So you have to pursue the American dream, you have to look like you're like people on TV, which is advertising. So it all comes back to advertising. And I was just listening to Yasha, and he, uh, I can't Nefarious. What's their podcast is Nefarious Russians or something like that. But anyway, they have a great quote about, I think it's from Philip K. Dick, but it's basically like this idea of inanimate reality being a supposed psychological projection. Animism is supposed to be some kind of sign that a tribal non-Western culture is immature if they project this sense that all of reality is alive. But in fact, quantum physics has proven that that's the truth already, because of non-locality. So it's a fascinating social science error to, like, you can call it racism if you want, but um, that this is assumed that if you think that reality is alive, that then you're projecting psychologically that there's inherent energy to reality, when in fact that's been proven now by quantum physics due to quantum non-locality. So um, it's quite fascinating that there's such a difference in worldviews based on the inability to listen to the empirical evidence of science and what it actually means. And because you can just listen to television and try to be like Hollywood and television, and the advertising business culture, which is the true culture of the United States. And so as long as you do that, then you're like hiding in the belly of the corporate beast. You feel safe and secure, but it's like collapsing from the outside within, the periphery of the empires imploding, and so now the empires become the periphery from within side. And so the conspiracy activist scene is now dependent on advertising. It's become like a business in itself, and so therefore it doesn't really listen to actual real conspiracies because that's too radical because it's been commodified into a bourgeois um, scene, whereas before the real conspiracy. Oh, actually, uh, Sam, Sam, the what's his name, Sam and Emma. They had an excerpt of Alex Jones about selling out essentially, and he was critiquing David Icke or whatever, and then Sam was like, "Well, Alex Jones basically did the same thing as David Icke, where they become this mass-produced conspiracy commodity." Because David Icke was promoted, he was distributed in all the big corporate bookstores, and you got to wonder why. I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's like, well, for whatever reason he got picked up by um, Border or Barnes and Nobles. All the Barnes and Noble stores had David Icke books back in the day. Anyway, yeah. So that's me talking to myself, and um, you just carry on and let Mother Nature get the job done because um, that's what's going to happen. People want to not deal with the empirical evidence because the truth is too hard to fathom. And one of the global warming YouTube channels just got deleted or removed by YouTube. Apparently, the person who runs the channel is I was she interviewed me, so that my interview on algae got deleted. So that's one of the reasons why I wrote an article last night, submitted it to this little leftist journal, but the leftist journal doesn't really nobody reads it. It's a website. I hadn't seen any mention of it online. So I saw I think it was linked by Hager, who's another conspiracy activist, Stephen Hager, I think his name is. I was on his website last night, and good morning. I'm just finishing my morning rant to myself, but feel free to post a comment or question if you have anything you want to talk about. Um, okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it, and I'm gonna sign off in a couple minutes. So yeah, if you don't want to post a comment, then I will just sign off. But yeah, the so-called information superhighway is really turning into like a mass mind control. And now the Palantir thing where they want to create an AI database of every human in the US, and so they can track people in real time. And there's been a lot of videos, people are obviously they don't want it, but at this point it's like, well, what can you do? Because you can't because the corporate fascism is in control. So even the elections, the votes are getting purged, and people don't know about it because they're so doesn't get talked about in the corporate media. But Greg Palast did a documentary on it, Vigilantes Incorporated, and he's trying hard to get the word out. But I think he was on at MSABCIA for like 2 minutes back. with a somebody who got fired from there, because she said, well, because she's a black woman, was can't remember her name now, but anyway, um, yeah. So that's you could say democracy is a scam too, because it's all based on the Platonic irrational magnitude geometry as equality when that's just the inverse of the exponential function. So people don't realize that. I mean, if you have direct democracy, that's actually like a primitivist, non-Western thing that's should actually be based on complementary opposites of the male and female or yin and yang kind of thing. And yeah, so these are complex issues because everything is interrelated, and most people are just doing their own little specialized niche, whatever their job is, or um, and so they don't have the time to study the larger dynamic that takes place as the internet. So then you get like the thing with Elon Musk trying to out Trump about Epstein, but I think like Mush probably doesn't even know that Sarah Ransom said that Trump was a routine visitor to Epstein's Manhattan mansion to abuse a female that Sarah Ramson was friends with, because Sarah Ramson was another victim of Epstein, and she settled in court against Epstein, and then she had to flee the United States because of the threats against her family by Epstein's goons or whatever, and that's what happens to the other women, that the females that speak out against Drumpf, is that they get threatened by his goons or whatever, and so like there's just been this whole thing on Epstein, but even these so-called experts on Epstein refuse to talk about Trump's close collaboration with him that anybody can find out if they look up Sarah Ransom, which I did like I don't know a couple years ago or something. I posted it on my blog. So it's like, well, how long is it going to take people to discover that information from Sarah Ransom that she knows for a fact that Trump was a regular abuser at Epstein's Manhattan mansion. So it it's kind of promising that if Mush is willing to talk about it, and then the right wing reaction is to try to turn it against Marshall. It's like, well, if he hadn't talked about it already, then that means he's what's the word? He's part of the problem. He's a collaborator with Trump because he's associated himself with the child rapist. Um. Anyway, it's kind of very fascinating to see the emotions that control humans and how people will twist reality around this, make it whatever they want to try to, deal with their emotional. Good morning. Just ranting. Post a comment or question if you want. Otherwise, I'm going to close the stream down. Um, you can post something in the chat in just the next couple seconds here. Okay. Everybody have a good day, and good luck trying to enjoy the internet. Hopefully your channel doesn't get deleted or whatever, and um, like happened to Sandy at Environmental Coffee House. So she said she got targeted. I told her about this global warming live stream of the global warming scientists who were getting shut down, and so they did a 100-hour live stream of talking about climate science. And I sent her the link on email, and she came into the chat. And then she said because she was in that chat, she got targeted, and her channel was claim to have a violation of child endangerment, but she doesn't have any videos about children or anything. It's all about environmental activism, environmental global warming. So I don't know, I emailed her. I'm like, well, did they give you any specifics? And she said she's trying to get her channel back up because she's got 5 years of um, information on there. And so good luck to Sandy. And I know, that was her business too, but she didn't use advertising. She was independent. So she's a good example of how to stay independent and by getting Patreon or subscribers or whatever. So members, that's it, YouTube members.